"Step aside, Mr. Vale. Now!" Naima Carter's voice cut firm. In the quiet hum of Hawthorne Ridge High, Preston Vale smirked, seeing only a weary black teacher he thought he could dominate. Rich, arrogant, and untouchable, he mistook her calm for weakness, her restraint for fear. Preston's world had always bent to his will. Students silenced, teachers intimidated, his family's money shielding him from consequence. But Naima was different. Before the classroom, she was a Marine who thrived under pressure. When Preston's hand closed around her throat, he thought he owned the moment. Instead, he ignited a battle that would shatter his family's power. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The morning sun filtered through the windows of Hawthorne Ridge High's main hallway, casting long shadows across the freshly waxed floors. Ms. Naima Carter walked with measured steps, her shoes clicking softly against the tiles as she monitored the bustling corridor between classes. Her dark blazer and pressed slacks projected the professional presence she'd carried since her Marine days, while her observant eyes scanned the scene with the sharpness of someone who never truly left that training behind. The hallway buzzed with typical morning energy. Lockers clanging, students chattering, the controlled chaos of teenagers navigating their social landscape. But something shifted in the air when Preston Vale's tall frame appeared at the far end, moving with the entitled swagger of someone who'd never heard the word no. Naima noticed him zero in on Marisol Vega, who stood at her locker organizing her books. Marisol, one of her brightest students, wore a simple sweater and jeans, her dark hair pulled back neatly as she focused on her task. "Hey, scholarship girl," Preston's voice carried down the hall, dripping with mock sweetness. "Working on another sob story essay? My struggles as a poor little—" Marisol's shoulders tensed, but she kept her eyes forward, trying to ignore him as he planted himself directly in front of her locker. His designer shoes and carefully distressed jeans probably cost more than 3 months of her family's rent. "Move aside, please," Marisol said quietly, clutching her books closer. "Or what?" Preston leaned closer, his 6-foot frame towering over her. "You'll cry to the diversity committee?" Naima approached with calm purpose, her voice carrying the same steady authority she'd used to command Marine units. "Mr. Vale, step away from Ms. Vega's locker." Preston's head snapped toward her, his face flushing. "We're just talking." "No, you're blocking her access and making inappropriate comments." Naima positioned herself slightly between them, not confrontational but present. "Move aside." Down the hall, Principal Mercer appeared, his gray suit as carefully pressed as his practiced smile. He walked toward them with the hurried steps of someone who'd rather sweep problems under the rug than solve them. "Everything all right here?" Mercer's voice carried forced cheerfulness. "Just kids being kids, right, Ms. Carter?" Naima kept her expression neutral. "No, sir. Mr. Vale was harassing Ms. Vega about her scholarship applications." "Oh, I'm sure it's just friendly banter." Mercer waved his hand dismissively. "Preston's family has done so much for our scholarship programs." Near the water fountain, Tariq Jones carefully pulled out his phone, angling it to capture the scene while pretending to check messages. Across the hall, Brooke Lynn did the same, her quiet determination evident in the steady way she held her device. Preston's smirk grew wider with Mercer's dismissal. He straightened his designer jacket, chest puffing with inherited confidence. "This school belongs to people like me," he declared, voice carrying down the corridor. "My family built half these buildings. Some people should remember their place." Naima met his gaze steadily. "This is a public school, Mr. Vale. It belongs to every student equally." "That's what they tell the masses," Preston sneered, running his hand along the lockers. "But we all know who really runs things." The tension in the hallway thickened as other students slowed their pace, watching the confrontation unfold. Marisol had backed away slightly, but her chin was raised, refusing to be cowed despite her obvious discomfort. The bell's sharp ring cut through the moment. Students began hurrying to their classes, the corridor filling with renewed movement. Preston shouldered his way through the crowd, deliberately ramming into a freshman who stumbled against the wall. He turned back to fix Naima with a final glare before disappearing around the corner. Mercer cleared his throat. "Well, that's settled then. Everyone to class." He hustled away, already pulling out his phone as if to distance himself from what he'd witnessed. Naima touched Marisol's shoulder gently. "You okay?" Marisol nodded, managing a small smile. "Yes, Ms. Carter. Thank you. Don't let anyone make you doubt your place here. You earned it." As the hallway cleared, Naima walked into her classroom with measured steps. The morning light streamed through the windows, illuminating the empty desks awaiting her students. She picked up a piece of chalk, its familiar texture grounding her as she turned to the blackboard. In clear, steady letters, she wrote, "Dignity is strategy." The words stood out against the dark surface, dust motes dancing in the sunbeams that crossed them. She set the chalk down precisely, aligning it with the metal tray's edge, a small act of order in a morning that had revealed so much disorder beneath Hawthorne Ridge's polished surface. The classroom remained quiet for a moment, the words on the board seeming to gather weight in the stillness before her students would begin filing in. The classroom's clock ticked steadily, marking time until the next bell would signal the official start of first period. The afternoon sun slanted through the classroom windows, casting long shadows across the worn tile floor of Naima's English classroom. Papers rustled as students packed up their copies of Their Eyes Were Watching God, the discussion of Janie's journey toward self-determination still hanging in the air. The dismissal bell was moments away. Naima stood at her desk, organizing the day's assignments into neat stacks. She glanced up occasionally, scanning the room with the instinctive vigilance that had become second nature during her Marine years. Most students chatted quietly, shouldering their backpacks and gathering their things. But something caught her attention. A shift in the energy at the back of the room. Preston Vale had pushed away from his desk and now loomed over Marisol's workspace, his 6-foot frame casting a shadow across her papers. His designer shirt stretched across his shoulders as he leaned down, planting both palms on her desk. "So, scholarship girl," Preston's voice carried through the classroom, deliberately loud enough to draw attention. "How exactly do you plan to make the grade? Extra credit with the admissions board?" Several students froze, books half-packed. The classroom's comfortable atmosphere evaporated, replaced by a thick tension. Marisol kept her eyes down, trying to slide her notebook into her bag, but Preston shifted to block her path. "I heard you've got quite the sob story planned for those essays," he continued, smirking. "Poor little immigrant family, working so hard." He made a show of wiping away an imaginary tear. Naima set down her papers with precise control. "Mr. Vale," her voice cut through the tension. "Step aside. Now." She moved from behind her desk with measured steps, her shoes clicking against the tile floor. The Marine Corps had taught her that true authority didn't need to shout. It was in the stance, the tone, the unwavering certainty of command. Preston's head snapped toward her, his face flushing red. "Or what?" he sneered. "You'll write me up? Call my mommy?" His fingers drummed against Marisol's desk in agitation. "This is your final warning," Naima stated, closing the distance. "Move away from Ms. Vega's desk." Something dangerous flashed in Preston's eyes. The raw fury of privilege challenged. His jaw clenched, and in one explosive moment he lunged forward. His hand shot out, fingers clamping around Naima's throat with crushing force. The classroom froze in shocked silence. Time seemed to stretch like taffy, sound dropping away except for the harsh rasp of Preston's breathing. But Naima's body remembered. 15 years of Marine training kicked in with mechanical precision. Her hands came up, executing a perfect wrist peel maneuver, thumb pressing into the pressure point near his thumb joint, other fingers creating leverage. A quick twist broke his grip, and she used his own momentum to push him back with controlled force. Preston stumbled backward, his expensive shoes sliding on the smooth tile. His arms windmilled as he lost balance, and he crashed to the floor with a resounding thud that seemed to shake the whole room. His face transformed from rage to shock as his head bounced slightly against the hard surface. The spell of silence broke. Gasps and exclamations filled the air as phones appeared from pockets and backpacks, screens glowing as they captured every second from different angles. The harsh fluorescent lights reflected off dozens of phone cases aimed at the scene. Running footsteps echoed in the hallway. Officer Darren Lentz burst through the door, his uniform crisp and his expression alert as he assessed the situation. Principal Mercer followed close behind, already wringing his hands. "Now, let's all stay calm," Mercer said, his voice pitched high with anxiety. "Ms. Carter, please, let's not escalate this situation. We can handle this internally." "No." Naima's voice was steady as she pulled out her own phone. "We cannot." Preston pushed himself up to sitting, his carefully styled hair disheveled, designer clothes rumpled. The mask of arrogance had cracked, revealing something younger and more uncertain underneath, as he watched Naima dial 911. "This is Naima Carter at Hawthorne Ridge High School," she spoke clearly into the phone. "I need to report an assault." Mercer stepped forward, reaching for her phone. "Ms. Carter, think about what you're doing." Officer Lentz held up a hand, stopping the principal. "Sir, step back. This is now a criminal matter." His other hand rested on his body camera, the small red light indicating it was recording. Through the open classroom windows came the first faint wail of approaching sirens. Students stood frozen, phones still recording, as the sound grew louder. In the tense quiet, a soft chime came from Naima's phone, an airdrop notification from Marisol Vega, containing raw video footage of the entire incident. The sunlight continued to stream through the windows, dust motes dancing in the golden beams as the sirens drew closer to Hawthorne Ridge High School. The comfortable routine of a normal school day had shattered, leaving something far more serious in its wake. The fluorescent lights of the school office buzzed overhead as Naima sat in one of the hard plastic chairs, her back straight, hands folded calmly in her lap. The Marine Corps had taught her how to maintain composure under pressure, and those lessons served her well now. Across the room, Preston slouched in his chair, his designer clothes still wrinkled from his fall, an ice pack pressed against the back of his head. Officer Lentz stood between them, his presence creating a clear divide in the cramped space. His body camera's red light blinked steadily as he flipped open his notepad. Principal Mercer hovered nearby, tension visible in every line of his body. "Now, let's handle this step by step," Officer Lentz said, his voice professional and measured. "Ms. Carter, please tell me exactly what happened." Naima spoke clearly, her words precise. "I was collecting papers at my desk when I observed Preston Vale harassing one of my students, Marisol Vega. When I approached and instructed him to step away, he grabbed me by the throat with his right hand, applying significant pressure." Officer Lentz nodded, writing in his notepad. "And then? I used a defensive maneuver to break his grip and create distance. He lost his balance and fell." "Ms. Carter, please," Mercer cut in, wringing his hands. "Surely we can discuss this reasonably. Preston is a senior, about to graduate. His whole future—" "Sir," Officer Lentz interrupted firmly, Please don't interfere with an official statement. He turned back to Naima. Did you suffer any injuries? Naima touched her throat lightly. Some soreness. There may be bruising. Officer Lentz documented this, then turned to Preston. Mr. Vale, your version of events? Preston straightened up, shooting a glance at Mercer before speaking. She attacked me first. I was just talking to another student, and she got in my face. I barely touched her. That's not what the videos show, Officer Lentz stated flatly. Multiple students recorded the incident. Would you like to revise your statement? Preston's face flushed red. He looked down at his expensive sneakers, suddenly seeming much younger than his 19 years. I might have grabbed her, but she made me fall. I hit my head. After you initiated physical contact, Officer Lentz pointed out. He pulled out a form and began writing. Based on the evidence and witness statements, I'm issuing you a summons for assault. You can't do that. Preston's voice cracked. Do you know who my mother is? The law applies equally to everyone, Mr. Vale, Officer Lentz replied, continuing to write. Ms. Carter, you have the right to press criminal charges. Given the nature of the assault and the clear video evidence, I strongly advise you to do so. Mercer stepped forward again, his voice strained. Officer, please. This is a school matter. We have internal procedures. Principal Mercer. Officer Lentz cut him off. Assault is a criminal offense, not a disciplinary issue. Please step back and let me do my job. The door opened, and Dr. Hattie Dubose entered quietly. The elderly librarian's presence seemed to fill the room despite her small frame. She moved to stand near Naima, her hand coming to rest supportively on the back of her chair. Officer Lentz finished writing and handed the summons to Preston. Sign here, acknowledging receipt. This is not an admission of guilt, just confirmation that you've received the summons. Preston's hand shook slightly as he signed. His usual swagger had vanished, replaced by a nervous energy that made him fidget in his seat. Ms. Carter? Officer Lentz turned back to Naima. Would you like me to call for medical attention to document your injuries? Not necessary at this time, Naima replied. I'll have them documented by my personal physician. Dr. Dubose spoke up, her voice gentle but carrying an underlying steel. I'll make sure she gets proper care and documentation. Officer Lentz nodded. I've activated my body camera for this entire interaction. The footage will be preserved as evidence. Ms. Carter, you can request a copy through proper channels for any legal proceedings. Mercer wiped sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Surely we can find a way to resolve this without involving courts and lawyers. That ship sailed when Mr. Vale chose to assault a teacher, Dr. Dubose stated firmly. Actions have consequences. Officer Lentz finished his paperwork and addressed Preston again. You're free to go, but I strongly suggest you avoid any contact with Ms. Carter or other witnesses. Any attempt at retaliation will result in additional charges. Preston stood up shakily, clutching the summons. He looked like he wanted to say something, but instead turned and hurried out of the office, the door closing behind him with a soft click. Thank you, Officer Lentz, Naima said, rising from her chair. I appreciate your professionalism. Dr. Dubose linked her arm through Naima's. Come on, child. Let's get your things, and I'll drive you home. They walked together through the empty hallways, their footsteps echoing in the afternoon quiet. Dr. Dubose's presence was comforting, reminding Naima of the strong women who had guided her through difficult times before. You held yourself with dignity, Dr. Dubose said softly. That's what they fear most, our unshakable dignity. They reached Naima's classroom, and she moved to her computer to shut it down for the day. A new email notification blinked on her screen. The subject line read, Urgent Administrative Action Notice. Opening the email, Naima read the first line. Effective immediately. You are placed on administrative leave pending review. Dr. Dubose read over her shoulder, her grip on Naima's arm tightening slightly. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the classroom floor, and somewhere in the distance, a school bell rang, marking the end of another period. The sunset painted Naima's small bungalow in shades of amber as she sat at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea that had long since gone cold. Dr. Hattie Dubose occupied the chair beside her, her weathered hands resting atop a stack of papers they'd been reviewing. "Child, you did everything right," Hattie said softly, pushing her wire-rimmed glasses up her nose. "By the book, just like they always told us to do." Naima stared into her tea, watching the faint ripples from her trembling hands. The day's events kept replaying in her mind. Preston's grip on her throat, the shocked faces of her students, Officer Lentz's professional handling of the situation, and then that email. 20 years of service, Naima said quietly. Not one complaint. I've guided hundreds of students through AP literature, helped them find their voices. And now you're showing them something even more important. Hattie interrupted, her voice firm but gentle. You're showing them how to stand up with dignity when the system tries to push you down. The crunch of tires on gravel cut through their conversation. Through the front window, they watched a sleek black sedan pull up to the curb. The porch light flickered on automatically, illuminating two figures emerging from the car. "Speaking of the system," Hattie muttered, straightening in her chair. The doorbell chimed, its cheerful tone at odds with the tension filling the room. Naima rose slowly, smoothing her shirt more out of military habit than concern for appearances. Through the peephole, she saw Eloise Vale's perfectly coiffed hair and practiced politician's smile. Naima opened the door, standing tall in the frame. "Mrs. Vale." "Ms. Carter," Eloise replied, her voice honey-sweet. "This is Ruth Pennington, our family attorney. May we come in? We have a matter to discuss that could benefit everyone involved." Naima stepped aside, allowing them entry. Eloise's designer heels clicked against the hardwood floors as she took in the modest living space. The bookshelves packed with well-worn classics, the framed Marine Corps flag on the wall, the stack of student essays waiting to be graded. "Dr. Dubose," Eloise acknowledged with a slight nod. "I didn't expect to find you here." "I expect there's a lot you didn't expect today," Hattie replied evenly, remaining seated. Ruth Pennington, a sharp-featured woman in an expensive suit, placed her briefcase on the kitchen table and extracted a thick envelope and a single sheet of paper. "Ms. Carter," Pennington began, "we're here to offer a resolution that will allow everyone to move forward without further unpleasantness." "Unpleasantness," Naima repeated, the word tasting bitter. "Is that what we're calling assault now?" Eloise's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "We all know how things can be misinterpreted in the heat of the moment. Preston is deeply sorry for any misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding on the video," Hattie interjected. "About that," Pennington said, sliding the envelope forward. "We're prepared to offer a very generous settlement. 7 figures, Ms. Carter, tax-free, along with a formal letter of apology from Preston." Naima looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. "In exchange for?" "You'll need to sign a non-disclosure agreement naturally," Pennington explained, "and we'll require all copies of the video to be surrendered and deleted. Additionally, you'll need to make a statement clarifying that the physical contact was mutual and unfortunate." "You want me to lie," Naima stated flatly. "We want to protect a young man's future," Eloise cut in, her practiced smile never wavering. "Think of what you could do with this money, Ms. Carter. Buy a house in a better neighborhood. Travel. Never worry about a teacher's salary again." Naima's hand unconsciously rose to her throat, where the bruises were beginning to form. "My integrity isn't for sale, Mrs. Vale." "Everyone has a price," Eloise said, her voice dropping its sugary coating. Don't let pride stand in the way of security. Pride? Naima's voice remained steady, but her eyes flashed. This isn't about pride. This is about right and wrong. This is about showing my students that actions have consequences, no matter who your parents are. Then let me be clear, Eloise said, all pretense of friendliness gone. You won't like what happens next. One teacher against the Vale family? Against the school board? Against the entire system? You'll lose everything. Your job, your reputation, your peace of mind. I've already lost my job, Naima replied. But I won't lose my self-respect. The answer is no. Pennington began gathering her papers. We'll leave the offer open for 24 hours. After that, you can direct all communication through my attorney. Naima finished. Eloise's heels clicked toward the door, but she paused before exiting. You're making a serious mistake, Miss Carter. One you'll regret for a long time. After they left, Hattie squeezed Naima's hand. You did good, child. They spent the next few hours talking quietly, but their phones kept buzzing with notifications. Social media posts were appearing, carefully crafted to paint Naima as the aggressor. Anonymous accounts shared edited clips that cut out Preston's initial assault, showing only his fall. The porch light clicked on again as another car pulled up. This time, it was attorney Janelle Brooks, her briefcase in one hand and a determined set to her jaw. She didn't wait for an invitation, striding through the door with purpose. I saw the posts, Janelle said, pulling out her laptop. They want to fight dirty in the dark? Fine. We'll fight them in the daylight. The morning sun streamed through Hattie's dining room windows, casting long shadows across stacks of documents and open laptops. What was usually a cozy space for Sunday dinners had transformed into a command center. Maps of the school district pinned to walls, folders spread across every surface, and the constant hum of a printer working overtime filled the air. Naima sat at the head of the oak table, her military-instilled posture unwavering despite her exhaustion. To her right, Janelle Brooks typed furiously on her laptop, pausing occasionally to adjust her reading glasses. Marisol and Tariq huddled over their phones, methodically backing up video footage to secure cloud storage. Found another one, Hattie announced, emerging from her study with a dusty file box. Her fingers, spotted with age but steady, pulled out a manila folder. 2 years ago, a junior varsity basketball player, Preston, accidentally shoved him down the stairs after a game. Janelle looked up sharply. Injuries? Broken wrist, Hattie said, scanning the document. Family received a settlement. Standard NDA language. But here's what's interesting. The payment came through a shell company, not directly from the Vales. They're hiding the pattern, Naima observed, her voice tight with controlled anger. Marisol raised her hand instinctively before speaking. A habit from class. Ms. Carter, I remember that. The player was Diego Martinez. He transferred schools right after. And here's the second incident, Hattie continued, pulling out another folder. Female student, name redacted. Preston grabbed her wrist hard enough to leave bruises when she refused to go to homecoming with him. Another quiet settlement. Tariq leaned forward. I got the hall footage from yesterday backed up in 3 different places. They can't delete this one. Good work, Janelle nodded, still typing. The third incident, Hattie? The librarian's face darkened as she opened the final folder. Coach Thompson filed a complaint about Preston's behavior during track practice. 2 days later, he was fired for budget cuts. Generous severance package with, you guessed it, an NDA. 3 incidents, 3 cover-ups, Naima said, standing to pace the room. Her Marine training showed in her measured steps, all buried under money and legal threats. Janelle's printer whirred to life, spitting out pages. I've got our FOIA requests ready. School board meeting minutes. budget allocations for student wellness settlements, email correspondence between Mercer and the Vales. They'll fight the requests, Hattie warned. Let them, Janelle replied with a fierce smile. Every denial just strengthens our case for the civil action. Speaking of which, she turned her laptop around, displaying a document dense with legal language. This complaint isn't just about yesterday's assault. We're going after the whole system of protection they've built. Marisol's phone buzzed. She checked it and frowned. They're already trying to pressure my family. My mom got a call about my scholarship being under review. Document everything, Janelle instructed. Every call, every threat. It's all evidence. The room fell silent as Naima's phone rang. The screen displayed SGT Whittaker. She put it on speaker. "Red, you're on with everyone." "Roger that," came the gruff voice of her former CO. "Got your message, Carter. Pulled some strings with Marine Corps records. That discharge file they're threatening to leak? Let them. Your commendations will shut them up quick." "Thanks, Red, but they're going after my students now." "Already handled," Red replied. "Got some battle buddies in the area. We're setting up a rotation. Discreet presence around your house and Marisol's. Nobody touches our people." Hattie nodded approvingly. "The community's mobilizing too. Parents are calling, teachers are whispering. This isn't going away like the others." Janelle finished typing with a flourish. "Civil action is ready. Claims include assault, conspiracy to cover up multiple incidents, racial discrimination, and retaliation against a whistleblower." She looked at Naima. "Once I hit send, there's no going back. The Vales will come at us with everything they have." "Good," Naima said firmly. "Let them show everyone who they really are." Tariq raised his phone. "Videos secured. We've got 3 angles of the assault, all time-stamped and authenticated. And I've got signed statements from 5 students who witnessed previous incidents," Marisol added. "They're scared, but they're willing to testify." Hattie walked over to Naima, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You know what this means? Taking on the Vales means taking on the whole power structure of this town. School board, business interests, political machines, they're all connected." "Then it's time they got disconnected," Naima replied, her voice steady. She nodded to Janelle. "Send it." The attorney's finger hovered over the enter key. "Last chance to back out." "Dignity is strategy," Naima whispered, echoing the words she'd written on her classroom board just yesterday, a lifetime ago. Janelle hit send. The computer chimed, confirming the filing had gone through. Multiple copies of the complaint would now be landing in official inboxes across the county. In that moment, the morning sun broke through the clouds, flooding the room with light. They sat in silence, aware that they had just declared war on a system that had never lost a battle. But looking around the table, at Hattie's wisdom, Janelle's determination, Marisol and Tariq's courage, and Red's loyalty on the speakerphone, Naima knew they had something the Vales didn't. Truth, documented and ready for daylight. Naima's phone buzzed at 6 a.m., pulling her from fitful sleep. A new district email sat bold in her inbox, its subject line stark. "Notice of conduct hearing. Mandatory attendance." She sat up, military-honed instincts pushing aside exhaustion. The message was cold, bureaucratic. "Ms. Carter, a special board conduct hearing has been scheduled for Thursday, 9 a.m., regarding recent events and allegations of professional misconduct. Attendance mandatory. Failure to appear will result in immediate termination. 3 days." They weren't wasting time. Her phone kept buzzing as she made coffee. Social media exploded with divided reactions. Local Facebook groups filled with heated debates. Some called her a troublemaker, others a hero. Justice for Naima trended alongside Darcher's Fire Carter. Delete nothing, Janelle had instructed. Screenshot everything. Naima's inbox overflowed. She sorted through them methodically, creating folders. Threats. Know your place. Should have taken the money. Leave our town. Support. My daughter's in your class. We stand with you. Thank you for being brave. Former students. You taught me to speak up. Remember that time you helped me with college apps? Her hand trembled slightly as she sipped her coffee. Not from fear, from the effort of containing her anger at a system that thought it could intimidate her into silence. Her doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw Coach Derry Wainwright shifting nervously on her porch, looking over his shoulder. She opened the door. "Ms. Carter," he said, voice low. "Can we talk?" She led him to her kitchen. He declined coffee, hands fidgeting with his baseball cap. "I should have come forward sooner," he began. "About Preston. About all of it." "Tell me now," Naima said quietly. "Last year, Preston got rough with one of my players in the locker room. Kid's family couldn't afford lawyers. I went to Mercer." Coach Derry's jaw clenched. "He called me to his office, said if I pursued it, they'd review my contract, said I had a mortgage to think about. Called it being practical." Naima recorded his statement on her phone, with permission. "Will you testify?" "I've got 2 kids in college," he said, then straightened his shoulders. "But yes, this has to stop." Her phone buzzed again. Janelle. "Emergency hearing in an hour," the attorney announced. "Judge Harriman's chambers. I'm filing for a temporary restraining order to protect our student witnesses. They're already getting pressure. I'll be there." The courthouse was quiet at 8 a.m. Judge Harriman, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, reviewed their evidence of intimidation. Screenshots of threatening messages to Marisol. The scholarship review warning. Similar pressure on other potential witnesses. "Granted," she said firmly. "No contact, direct or indirect, with any student witnesses. 100 yards minimum distance. I'm also ordering preservation of all school security footage and electronic communications." Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered. Janelle handled them with practiced skill, while Naima slipped out the back. She drove to Hawthorne Ridge High, knowing she wasn't supposed to be there. The parking lot was half empty. Many parents had kept their kids home. Through the windows, she could see Mercer in his office, on the phone, gesturing angrily. Using her key, they hadn't asked for it back yet, she entered her classroom. The air felt different. Empty desks stood in perfect rows. Student essays waited in her inbox, ungraded. Their voices echoed in the silence. Discussions about Toni Morrison, debates over Shakespeare, moments of breakthrough when literature connected to life. On her desk, a pile of sticky notes had appeared. "We miss you, Ms. C. Stay strong." They picked the wrong teacher to mess with. Naima ran her fingers along her classroom library shelves. Books she'd collected over years of teaching. Some bought with her own money, others donated by former students. Each one carefully chosen to show her students themselves in literature, to help them find their voices. Their eyes were watching God. "The Hate You Give," "Night," "Lord of the Flies," stories of power, resistance, dignity, and consequences. She touched each spine, a quiet ritual. This was what they wanted to take from her. This space where young minds opened to new possibilities. Where students learned that words had power, that speaking truth mattered. The hallway security camera whirred, turning toward her classroom. Let them watch. Let them see her standing firm in her own space. Her phone vibrated. A text from Marisol. "Got more videos from other students. Meeting at Dr. Dubose's after school?" Then another from Janelle. "Restraining order served. Board meeting prep tonight. Bring everything." And one from Red. "Marine's got your 6, Carter. Always." Naima straightened a row of books, ensuring each spine aligned perfectly. Military precision in this small act of defiance. They thought an empty classroom would break her. They had no idea what she'd survived before this. The morning bell rang, jarring in the silence. Somewhere in the building, her students were gathering without her. But not for long. 3 days until the hearing. 3 days to show this town what real strength looked like. She took one last look at her classroom, at the words still written on her board. Dignity is strategy. Not just a saying now, a battle plan. See you Thursday, she whispered to the empty room, and walked out with her head high, leaving the door unlocked. She'd be back. Some things were worth fighting for. The library's community room hummed with tension as parents filed in for the emergency PTA forum. Fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across worried faces. Naima sat between Hattie and Janelle in the back row, watching Councilman Brent Carlisle arrange papers at the podium. He's Eloise's attack dog, Hattie whispered, adjusting her reading glasses. Been doing her dirty work for years. Carlisle tapped the microphone, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the room's worn carpet and institutional furniture. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. Recent events have raised serious concerns about student safety at Hawthorne Ridge High. Parents shifted in their metal chairs. Some avoided eye contact with Naima, others offered subtle nods of support. Evidence suggests, Carlisle continued, his voice oily with false concern, that certain faculty members have encouraged students to provoke and record confrontations with their peers. This form of entrapment. Point of order. Hattie's voice cut through the room as she stood, straight-backed and dignified. The district's own security policy, Section 4.3, explicitly permits student recording of any incident where safety is concerned. She pulled a worn binder from her bag. And if we're discussing evidence, I have here 3 separate incident reports involving similar confrontations, all conveniently buried in administrative reviews. Carlisle's polished smile faltered. Dr. DuBose, this isn't... Furthermore, Hattie continued, the student handbook specifically protects the right to document and report harassment without fear of retaliation. Page 23, if anyone would like to verify. The room erupted into murmurs. A parent near the front stood up, pointing at Naima. My son says she's turning the kids against each other, making everything about race. My daughter says she's the only teacher who makes her feel safe. Another parent countered, rising. The only one who stops the bullying instead of ignoring it? The division in the room crystallized. One side demanded traditional values and respect for authority. The other spoke of accountability and protection for all students. Naima remained still, her Marine training evident in her composed posture. She watched parents she'd known for years choose sides, their true colors emerging under pressure. Carlisle tried to regain control. The Vale family has been a pillar of this community. The Vale family, Janelle spoke up, her lawyer's precision cutting through the chaos, has no special exemption from assault charges. Ms. Carter's military service record and teaching evaluations speak for themselves. Perhaps we should discuss why certain students believe they're above the law. More arguments erupted. Parents jabbed fingers, voices rose. Security cameras whirred in the corners, recording everything, just as they had in the school hallway. After an hour of heated debate, the forum dissolved into smaller clusters of angry discussion. Naima gathered her things, nodding thanks to supporters who stopped to whisper encouragement. In the parking lot, the autumn air had turned sharp with cold. Hattie hugged Naima. You did right, staying quiet. Let them show themselves. Head on a swivel, Janelle advised, scanning the dark lot. They were halfway to their cars when headlights suddenly flared behind them. A black SUV with tinted windows accelerated toward them, engine growling. Naima pushed Hattie behind a concrete pillar, her combat training taking over. The SUV screeched to a stop. A masked figure leaned out the passenger window. "Drop it!" a distorted voice commanded. "Last warning!" Before anyone could respond, the SUV peeled away. But Tarek Jones, who'd been leaving the library, had his phone out. "Got the first 3 numbers of the plate," he called out, jogging over. 743. Janelle immediately dialed the police. Hattie steadied herself against the pillar, shaken but determined. "They're scared," she said. "Wouldn't resort to this if they weren't scared." Naima memorized every detail. The SUV's make and model, the distinctive scratch on its hood, the slight accent in the masked voice. She'd learned in the Marines that fear tactics only worked if you let them. The police arrived quickly, taking statements. Officer Lentz was among them, his face grim as he reviewed Tariq's footage. Later, Naima's porch light cast a lonely glow as she unlocked her front door. The street was quiet, too quiet. Every shadow seemed to hold potential threats. A vehicle turned onto her street, headlights sweeping across her house. She tensed, then relaxed as she recognized the old pickup truck. Sergeant Red Whitaker emerged, silver hair gleaming in the streetlight, carrying a heavy duffel bag. "Carter," he greeted her, as if they were back on base. "Got your 6. "Red, you didn't have to." "Marine Corps doesn't leave its own hanging." He set the duffel down. "I'll take night duty. Got some of our old unit rotating shifts. They pulled this intimidation garbage in the wrong neighborhood." Naima felt tension ease from her shoulders. She'd trained under Red, learned discipline and strategy from him. Now, here he was, still teaching lessons about loyalty and strength. "They're getting desperate," she said. "Good." Red checked sightlines with practiced efficiency. Desperate means sloppy. Sloppy leaves evidence. We just maintain position and let them make mistakes. He settled into a chair on her porch, duffel bag within reach. The message was clear. This house, this teacher, would not stand alone. The school auditorium buzzed with tension as hundreds packed the wooden seats. Fluorescent lights cast a harsh glare over the scene. Board members arranged behind their long table on stage, Principal Mercer fidgeting with his tie, Eloise Vale perfectly composed in an expensive blue suit. Naima sat in the front row between Janelle and Hattie, her posture military straight. Coach Derry hunched a few seats down, his weathered face tight with worry. Behind them, students filled entire sections, many wearing Justice for Ms. Carter buttons that Marisol had designed. "Remember," Janelle whispered, arranging documents on her lap. "Let them dig their own holes." Board President Franklin Wallace tapped his gavel. "This emergency session will come to order. We're here to address the incident between Ms. Naima Carter and student Preston Vale." Mercer stood, clutching a folder. "If I may begin, we have statements from several witnesses who—" "Point of order." Janelle rose, her voice filling the room. "Before we hear selectively chosen statements, I move to present the unedited video evidence, as is our right under District Policy 4.7.2. Wallace frowned. "Ms. Brooks, this isn't a courtroom." "No," Janelle agreed. "It's a public institution bound by transparency laws. I have here," she held up a flash drive, "footage from multiple angles showing the entire incident. The board's own bylaws require consideration of all available evidence." Eloise Vale leaned forward to whisper something to Wallace, but he was already nodding reluctantly. "Very well. Technical services, please." A young IT worker hurried to connect the flash drive to the projector system. The huge screen behind the board flickered to life, showing Naima's classroom after the bell. The crowd watched in silence as Preston blocked Marisol's path, his body language aggressive. They heard his sneering comments about her scholarship. Then Naima approached, her voice calm but firm. "Step aside, Mr. Vale. Now." What happened next drew gasps from the audience. Preston's sudden lunge, his hand clamping around Naima's throat, the image massive on screen, impossible to minimize or explain away. The precise, controlled way she broke his grip without causing injury. The stunned look on his face as he fell. "Freeze frame," Janelle commanded. The technician complied, leaving Preston's hand clearly visible around Naima's throat. Phones emerged throughout the auditorium, capturing the frozen image. Board member Sarah Chen removed her glasses, rubbing her eyes. "My God! There are 3 more angles," Janelle continued, all showing the same sequence. Ms. Carter defended herself with minimal force against an unprovoked assault. An assault that, I might add, carries criminal penalties. Preston slumped in his seat, face red. Eloise maintained her composure, but her knuckles were white where she gripped her designer purse. "I've seen enough." Board member Thomas Reynolds stood, his voice shaking. "I've served on this board for 12 years. In that time, I've watched us bury incidents, protect certain families, preserve what we called stability. But this," he gestured at the screen, "this is beyond defense." He removed his board member badge and placed it on the table. "I resign, effective immediately. And I'll be providing a full statement to the authorities about other incidents we've covered up." The crowd erupted. Wallace banged his gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. Coach Derry suddenly rose, his voice carrying over the chaos. "I need to speak," he said. "I've kept quiet too long. Mr. Vale has a history of this behavior. Last year, he threatened a female student. Principal Mercer told me to forget about it, said my contract renewal depended on my discretion." Mercer half rose. "Now, see here. I have dates, times, and witnesses," Coach Derry continued. "I wrote everything down. Been carrying that notebook for months, trying to decide what was right." More commotion. Parents were standing now, some shouting for the entire board to resign. Others demanded Mercer's immediate removal. The student section started chanting, "Play the rest! Play the rest!" Wallace consulted quickly with other board members. After several minutes of heated whispers, he raised his hands for quiet. "Given the clear video evidence and new testimony, I move to temporarily reinstate Ms. Carter to her teaching position, pending a full investigation of all related incidents." He glared at Mercer. "And I expect complete cooperation from administration." The vote was quick. 6 in favor, 1 abstention. Eloise Vale gathered her things and swept toward the exit, practically dragging Preston with her. Mercer followed, ashen-faced. Students surged forward to surround Naima. Marisol hugged her, tears streaming. "You're coming back. You're really coming back." They spilled out into the parking lot, where more supporters waited. Someone started a cheer that spread through the crowd. "Carter! Carter! Carter!" Naima allowed herself a small smile, accepting handshakes and hugs from parents and colleagues. Hattie squeezed her arm. "Dignity is strategy," she whispered. The celebration was just reaching its peak when Naima's phone buzzed. A text from Red. "Turn on Channel 7 now." She pulled up the local news station's live stream on her phone. Her heart sank as she watched an edited version of the incident playing across the screen. The footage had been cut and spliced to show her moving toward Preston first, making his grab appear defensive. The anchor's voice droned, "Questions arise about teachers' aggressive conduct." Naima kept her face neutral, even as she felt dozens of eyes on her. She'd learned in the Marines that victories often drew the heaviest counterattacks. The war wasn't over. It was escalating. The glow of the TV cast harsh shadows across Naima's living room as she sat between Hattie and Red, watching Channel 7's coverage spread like poison. Her temporary victory at the board hearing felt like it happened in another lifetime, not just hours ago. Sources close to the Vale family suggest This edited footage reveals the full context of the incident, the anchor said smoothly. The manipulated video played again, chopped and rearranged to show Naima advancing aggressively toward Preston before his hand reached her throat. Red's jaw clenched. That's not what happened. They cut out 2 whole minutes of him blocking Marisol. Of course they did. Hattie's voice was bitter as she took notes. They've got friends at every station in town. Eloise's campaign donations see to that. Naima's phone buzzed constantly with notifications. The doctored footage was spreading across social media, each share adding new layers of lies. Comments called her the angry black teacher and another violent troublemaker. We have the original videos, Naima said quietly. Multiple angles. The truth is right there. Truth needs people willing to see it, Hattie replied, patting her hand. And money makes people look the other way. Red checked his phone, frowning. Janelle's calling. Hold on. He put the call on speaker. It's bad, Janelle said without preamble. Judge Whitman just stayed our discovery motion on Preston's previous NDAs. Says he's concerned about trial by media, contaminating potential jurors. That's convenient timing, Hattie muttered. It gets worse, Janelle continued. Preston's lawyer just filed a defamation countersuit. They're claiming your false allegations have caused him severe emotional distress and damaged his college prospects. Naima closed her eyes, remembering her Marine training. Control your breathing. Focus on what you can affect. How much are they asking for? $2 million, plus a public retraction of your assault claim. Red stood up, pacing. This is bull. Language, Sergeant, Hattie warned automatically. Baloney, Red finished. They assault her on camera, then sue her for talking about it? Welcome to the American legal system, Janelle said grimly, where money buys enough lawyers to make black look white. Naima watched the TV as another station picked up the edited footage. Her own face looked alien to her in their twisted version, angry, threatening. They'd even darkened the footage slightly, making her seem more menacing. We need to counter this narrative, Hattie said. I've got contacts at the Black Heritage Society. They can help spread the real video. A crash of shattering glass cut through the room. Red moved instantly, shoving Naima and Hattie behind the couch as a brick thudded onto her carpet. Outside, tires squealed. Stay down, Red commanded, already running for the door. His military training was evident in his swift, precise movements. Through the window, they could see a dark sedan speeding away, its taillights gleaming. Red sprinted after it, his phone out, recording. 479, he called back over his shoulder, capturing the partial plate before the car disappeared around a corner. Naima approached the brick carefully, noting the paper wrapped around it. She used a pen to carefully unfold the note without touching it directly. The message was typed, "Drop the charges or worse comes next." Hattie was already on the phone with the police. Glass crunched under her shoes as she paced. Yes, we need an officer right away. This is Dr. Hattie Dubose at 1247 Maple Street. We've just had a brick thrown through Ms. Carter's window with a threatening note. Red returned, breathing hard. Lost them at Cedar Avenue. But that partial plate, it's the same one Tariq spotted after the PTA meeting. Naima stared at the broken window, feeling the cool night air seep in. The breach in her home's safety brought back memories of night watches in war zones. But this was different. In the Marines, the enemy was clear. Here, the attacks came wrapped in lawyers' letters and edited videos, followed by bricks in the dark. I'm staying tonight, Red declared, brooking no argument. We'll set up watches like we did in Fallujah. I'll make coffee, Hattie said, heading to the kitchen, and call that glass repair service that does emergency boarding. Naima carefully photographed the brick, the note, and the broken glass from multiple angles. Evidence. Everything was evidence now. Her phone buzzed again. More notifications about the edited video. More comments calling her a liar. Red placed a hand on her shoulder. "We've got your 6, Marine." She nodded, grateful for his solid presence. The police would come, take statements, file reports. Tomorrow, Janelle would add this incident to their growing file. But tonight, the cool air whispered through her broken window, carrying a message clearer than any typed threat. The system was fighting back. In her kitchen, Hattie hummed an old civil rights song as she made coffee. Its familiar melody, a reminder that others had faced worse and prevailed. Red checked the perimeter, his footsteps regular and reassuring on her porch boards. Naima touched the jagged edges of glass still clinging to the window frame. She'd taught her students about symbolic imagery in literature, how broken things often represented broken systems. Now her own window had become a symbol, its sharp edges reflecting the fractured justice they were fighting to repair. The night stretched ahead, dark and uncertain. But she wasn't alone in facing it. That would have to be enough for now. The plywood over Naima's window blocked out the streetlights, casting deeper shadows across her living room. The harsh sound of power tools had faded, leaving behind the quiet hum of late-night conversation and coffee cups clinking against saucers. Hattie settled into the armchair while Red checked the temporary barrier one final time. A soft knock at the back door made them all tense. Red moved swiftly to check through the peephole, then relaxed. "It's Marisol." The girl slipped in quietly, her shoulders hunched under her backpack. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and she clutched her phone like a lifeline. Naima guided her to the couch, noting how her star student's usual confidence seemed dimmed. "I wasn't sure if I should come," Marisol said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I had to tell you." She pulled out her laptop, opening it to display an email. This came an hour ago. Naima leaned in to read, feeling Hattie's presence behind her shoulder. The message was politely worded but crystal clear. The Vale Family Foundation, a major donor to the school's scholarship fund, was reviewing their commitment to the program. "They're going to take away my college money," Marisol said, her voice cracking. 4 years of perfect grades, and they can just—" She pressed her hands to her face, shoulders shaking. Hattie moved forward, wrapping an arm around the girl. "Not on my watch, child. Not on my watch." She pulled out her own phone, fingers flying over the keys. "I've got connections at the Black Heritage Society, the Hispanic Education Foundation, and 3 alumni associations. We'll find you new funding." "But my mother—" Marisol wiped her eyes. "She works so hard. This scholarship was supposed to be my way to help her." "Listen to me," Hattie said firmly, taking Marisol's hands. "Your mother didn't raise you to bow to bullies. Neither did Miss Carter. We'll find a way." Another knock interrupted them, this one at the front door. Red checked again. "Coach Derry," he reported, "with what looks like half a grocery store." The football coach entered carrying 2 large paper bags, his weathered face etched with concern. He set the food on Naima's coffee table, still warm containers of his wife's famous chicken soup, fresh rolls, and enough coffee supplies to fuel an army. "Margaret stress cooks when she's worried," he explained, running a hand through his thinning hair. "And I'm done being quiet about what I've seen." Naima gestured for him to sit. He perched on the edge of an armchair, hands clasped between his knees. "I've watched Preston for years," he continued, "the way he treats people when he thinks no one important is looking. The things Mercer swept under the rug." "We need that testimony, Coach," Janelle said, having arrived earlier to document the brick incident. She pulled out her laptop. "Are you willing to go on record?" Derry nodded slowly. "Got a mortgage to worry about. But I've got a conscience, too. And it's been mighty noisy lately." He glanced at Marisol. "These kids deserve better than what we've been giving them." Red had been moving between windows, checking sight lines. Now he gathered everyone's attention. We need to talk security. I've been making calls. Got neighbors willing to help. He spread a rough map of the street on the table, pointing out positions. Mrs. Chen, from number 1243, has a clear view of your driveway. Mr. Washington at 1251 can see the back fence. We're setting up a rotation. 2-hour watches. Like a neighborhood watch? Marisol asked, leaning forward with interest. Better, Red replied. Marine style. Everyone gets a specific zone, specific signals. He demonstrated with his flashlight 2 quick flashes for all clear, 3 for attention needed, 4 rapid pulses for emergency. Phones on silent, texting only. No one confronts anything alone. Naima watched as her living room transformed into a command center. Red assigned positions and protocols, while Hattie made calls about scholarship alternatives. Coach Derry gave his statement to Janelle, his voice growing stronger as he detailed incident after incident. The night deepened. Marisol dozed on the couch, her laptop still open to college applications. Hattie covered her with a blanket, murmuring, "Rest, child. We'll fight tomorrow." Around 3 a.m., neighbors began arriving in pairs for Red's security briefing. Mrs. Chen brought thermoses of hot tea. Mr. Washington arrived with his son, both wearing reflective jogging gear. Perfect cover for late-night observation. Remember, Red instructed them, you're not vigilantes. You're witnesses. See something, signal, document. Let the proper authorities handle any direct confrontation. By 4 a.m., the watch rotation was in place. Naima could see flashlight signals passing between houses. 2 quick flashes, all clear, repeated every 15 minutes. The system was simple but effective, turning her neighbors into a protective network. Around 5 a.m., the night's adrenaline finally began to ebb. Hattie had dozed off in the armchair, her phone still displaying scholarship contact lists. Coach Derry had gone home to catch some sleep before morning practice, leaving behind his written testimony and promises of more information to come. Red gestured Naima onto the porch, where the pre-dawn air carried the first hints of morning. They sat in her rocking chairs, watching the street where their neighbors kept their quiet vigil. Flashlight signals winked between houses. 2 flashes. All clear, all clear. "Sun soon," Red murmured, his voice gravelly with fatigue but steady with certainty. The town hall's bright studio lights cast harsh shadows across the faces in the packed auditorium. Camera crews from 3 local stations positioned their equipment near the stage, where a long table awaited the board members. The air hummed with tension and the murmur of the crowd. Naima sat in the front row between Hattie and Red, her spine straight, hands folded in her lap. She wore her navy blazer, the one she'd worn when accepting her teaching award last spring. Her face remained carefully neutral as Eloise Vale glided onto the stage in a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than Naima's monthly salary. "Good evening, Hawthorne Ridge," Eloise began, her smile practiced and pristine. "Tonight, we address serious concerns about the moral character of our educators." The words hit like carefully aimed darts. Naima felt Hattie's hand squeeze her arm. Principal Mercer shuffled his papers at the board table, not meeting anyone's eyes. The other board members arranged themselves with varying degrees of discomfort, except for Theodore Walsh, who sat closest to Eloise, with the same entitled tilt to his chin that his son Preston had inherited. "We've gathered several witnesses," Eloise continued, "who paint a disturbing pattern of behavior." One by one, they approached the microphone. A senior Naima had never taught claimed she overheard instructions for provoking Preston in the hallway. A substitute teacher suggested Naima had radical ideas about discipline. A parent insisted her child felt unsafe in Naima's classroom. Each testimony grew more outlandish than the last. Naima recognized the careful coaching in their word choice, the way they echoed specific phrases, that would play well in sound bites. "Ms. Carter," one woman said, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue, "told students to record everything Preston did. She was targeting him, trying to ruin his future." Red's jaw clenched. Hattie scribbled furious notes, but Naima remained still, remembering her Marine training. Let the enemy exhaust their ammunition. Preston sat in the second row, surrounded by his usual crowd of enablers. His smirk grew with each testimony, his phone occasionally lighting up as he texted, probably bragging to friends about his imminent victory. After the parade of witnesses, Mercer stood. His hands shook slightly as he adjusted his tie. "In light of these troubling revelations," he said, "I move to terminate Ms. Carter's employment for cause, effective immediately." The words hung in the air like smoke. Cameras swiveled to capture Naima's reaction, but she gave them nothing except dignity. Board member Sandra Chen spoke up. "Shouldn't we review the original incident footage again?" "Already settled," Walsh cut in. "We're voting on new evidence of misconduct." The deliberation lasted 17 minutes. Naima counted each one, breathing in the steady rhythm she'd learned in basic training. Around her, she could feel the tension in her supporters. Marisol's mother gripping her rosary, Coach Derry's leg bouncing with nervous energy, her students watching with wide eyes as adults once again proved how systems could be twisted. The vote was 4-3 for termination. "Mrs. Carter's employment is terminated for cause," Mercer announced, his voice cracking slightly. "All salary and benefits cease immediately." Camera lights flashed. Preston's laugh carried across the room. Eloise leaned down to whisper something in his ear, both of them wearing matching expressions of satisfaction. "We're finished here," Eloise announced to the room, but her eyes locked onto Naima's. The threat in them was clear. "Don't get up again." Naima rose slowly, gathering her purse. The cameras followed her every move as she walked toward the exit, head high. Hattie and Red flanked her like guards, their presence solid and sure. Outside, the evening had turned cold. Their footsteps echoed on the empty sidewalk as they walked away from the lights and noise. Only when they reached the shadow of a massive oak tree did Naima finally stop. One tear slid down her cheek. Just one. She wiped it away with military precision. "They think they've won," Hattie said softly, pulling Naima into a fierce hug. Red stood watch, his stance protective. They got cocky, made mistakes. Naima's phone buzzed. Janelle's message lit up the screen. "Chain of custody. We flip it." "What does that mean?" Hattie asked, peering at the text. Before Naima could respond, they heard footsteps. Coach Derry emerged from the shadows, clutching a manila envelope. "You need to see this," he said, his voice low. "Mercer's been sloppy with the security footage. And I've got dates, times, every edit they made to that video they've been spreading." More footsteps approached. Sandra Chen hurrying toward them, still in her board member suit. "I recorded everything," she whispered. "The private sessions where they coached those witnesses. Walsh's son was stupid enough to stream it on social media. Thought he was being clever, showing off how they were going to take care of the problem." Naima stood very still, absorbing this information. Her military training had taught her that sometimes you had to absorb a hit to expose your opponent's weakness. She thought of all those testimonies, all those cameras recording every word. Red checked his phone. "Night watch is in position at your house. No one's getting near anything tonight." Hattie squeezed Naima's hand. They wanted a show. They certainly got one. Naima nodded once, then straightened her blazer. Around her, the night felt less dark than it had a moment before, filled with the quiet strength of allies gathering. The morning sun filtered through Hattie's kitchen windows, casting warm light across stacks of documents and laptops scattered over her oak table. Coffee cups and half-eaten muffins dotted the makeshift command center, where Naima, Janelle, Red, Hattie, and Marisol had gathered since dawn. Naima sat with perfect posture despite her exhaustion, her fingers wrapped around a cooling mug of tea. The events of last night's ambush vote still played through her mind, but the military discipline that had carried her through combat zones now kept her focused on the mission ahead. "Found something," Red announced, his gruff voice breaking the quiet concentration. He pulled a thick manila folder from his duffel bag, spreading out meticulously organized papers. "Been keeping records since the first incident. Every security camera request I filed with Mercer's office." Janelle leaned forward, her legal pad ready. "How many requests?" 17, Red said, tapping the stack. "Each one properly dated, time-stamped, and signed. Each one conveniently lost, or pending review." He laid out the forms in chronological order. "Notice the pattern?" Hattie adjusted her reading glasses, studying the dates. "They correspond exactly with Preston's previous incidents." "Exactly," Red confirmed. "I requested footage from the parking lot when that girl's wrist was bruised, the hallway when Coach Derry reported threats, the cafeteria during the vandalism incident. Every single time, Mercer claimed technical difficulties or missing tapes." Marisol, who had been quietly typing notes on her laptop, looked up. "But the cameras are always working. I see the red lights every day." "That's right," Red nodded. "And look here." He pointed to a receipt. "I paid the district tech office to verify the system status on each date. Every camera was fully functional." Naima studied the documents, remembering her military training in maintaining paper trails. "You kept receipts for everything." "Marines don't leave loose ends," Red said with a slight smile. "Each denial required Mercer's signature. He probably thought no one would connect the dots." Janelle was already scanning documents into her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "This establishes a pattern of deliberate evidence suppression. But we need—" Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thought. She read the message, her eyebrows rising. Well, anonymous tip from someone inside the school. Says the SRO's body microphone picked up something interesting yesterday. The room went quiet. Hattie poured fresh coffee into everyone's cups as Janelle put her phone on speaker and played an audio file. Mercer's distinctive voice crackled through. "Those student phones need to disappear, Officer Lentz. Especially the ones with hallway footage. I don't care how you do it. Just make them go missing from the evidence locker." The Vale family has been very generous to the district's security budget. "My God," Hattie whispered. "That's tampering with evidence," Red growled. Marisol sat up straighter. "Officer Lentz must have refused. That's why our phones weren't taken." "And why he issued the summons to Preston by the book," Naima added, remembering the SRO's professional handling of the initial incident. Janelle was already pulling up legal documents on her laptop. "This changes everything. We can file an emergency motion for a chain of custody hearing. The edited video they're spreading, the ignored security footage, the attempt to destroy evidence, it all shows coordinated suppression." She began typing rapidly, legal terminology flowing as naturally as breathing. The others watched her work, the only sounds being keyboard clicks and occasional sips of coffee. "Here's what the motion will argue," Janelle explained, turning her screen so everyone could see. "First, we demonstrate the pattern of evidence suppression through Red's denied camera requests. Then we introduce the body mic recording, showing Mercer's attempt to destroy student phone evidence. Finally, we demand a full accounting of how that edited video of Naima got created and distributed." "Will the judge hear it quickly enough?" Hattie asked. "With evidence tampering this blatant?" "They'll have to." Janelle's fingers never stopped moving, especially since it involves a public official trying to destroy evidence in an assault case. Naima noticed Marisol had gone quiet. "What are you thinking?" "Just remembering something from AP government," Marisol said slowly. about chain of custody, meaning every person who handled evidence has to be documented. So if they edited that video, there would be records of who accessed the original footage, Red finished, nodding approvingly. And who authorized its release to the media, Hattie added. Exactly, Janelle said. Every edit, every transfer, every decision to publish, it all leaves traces. They got sloppy in their rush to control the narrative. She made a few final keystrokes, then hit submit. Motion filed. Now we wait. They didn't have to wait long. Within 20 minutes, Janelle's phone buzzed with a response from the court. Emergency hearing granted for tomorrow morning at 9, she announced. Judge Harriet Chen presiding. Chen? Hattie's eyes widened. She has a reputation for being meticulous about procedure. And she hates evidence tampering, Janelle confirmed. More importantly, she's not up for re-election, so the Vale family's influence won't matter. Red gathered his documentation carefully. Time to show them what real receipts look like. The marble halls of the county courthouse echoed with footsteps as Naima and her team made their way to courtroom 3. Red walked slightly ahead, his military bearing automatic as he scanned for threats. Janelle carried her well-worn leather briefcase, while Dr. Calvin Rhee, the forensics expert, balanced his laptop and technical equipment. Judge Marta Klein's courtroom stood imposing with its dark wood panels and high ceiling. Naima took her seat beside Janelle, keeping her face neutral as Eloise Vale swept in with her legal team. Preston slouched in behind them, his usual swagger diminished under the formal setting. Principal Mercer sat separately with the district's counsel, tugging at his collar. "All rise," the bailiff called as Judge Klein entered, her silver hair gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Once everyone was seated, Dr. Rhee took the stand. He adjusted his glasses and opened his laptop, connecting it to the courtroom's display system. "Dr. Rhee," Janelle began, "please explain your analysis of the video file in question." "Certainly." He pulled up a technical timeline on the screen. Every digital file carries metadata. Think of it as a fingerprint showing who created it, when, and what changes were made. The edited video clip that aired on Channel 8 News has a very clear history. He zoomed in on a string of code. The original footage was recorded on a student's phone at 10:17 a.m. on the day of the incident. At 4:23 p.m. that same day, the file was uploaded to a workstation registered to Summit Communications. "And what is Summit Communications?" Janelle asked. "They're the PR firm handling Mrs. Vale's mayoral campaign," Dr. Rhee replied. The file was edited there using professional software, removing approximately 40 seconds of footage showing Mr. Vale's initial aggressive actions. Eloise shifted in her seat as Dr. Rhee continued. At 6:45 p.m., the edited version was emailed from Principal Mercer's official school account to Channel 8's news desk, with a CC to Mrs. Vale's campaign manager. He displayed the email chain. The subject line read, "Approved version for immediate release." The metadata shows the editing software license belongs to Summit Communications, paid for by the Vale Campaign Fund. Judge Klein leaned forward. "Dr. Rhee, in your expert opinion, could these alterations have been accidental?" "No, Your Honor. The edits were precise, deliberately removing specific segments while maintaining seamless transitions. This required professional expertise and intention." The judge's expression hardened as she turned to Eloise's attorney. "Counselor, would you care to explain why your client's campaign was editing evidence in an active assault investigation?" Before the attorney could respond, Janelle stood. "Your Honor, we have additional evidence of systematic suppression." She gestured to Coach Derry, who approached the bench with a notarized document. Derry's hands trembled slightly as he was sworn in, but his voice stayed steady. "This is my sworn statement regarding 3 previous incidents involving Preston Vale. In each case, Principal Mercer called me to his office and made it clear that speaking up would cost me my job. He detailed each incident: the bruised wrist of a female student, vandalized equipment in the weight room, threats made to players who questioned Preston's starting position despite missing practices. "Why come forward now?" Janelle asked. Derry squared his shoulders. "Because watching that edited video made me realize staying quiet is the same as lying. These kids deserve better than that." Judge Klein reviewed his affidavit, then looked up with steel in her eyes. "This court takes a dim view of evidence manipulation and witness intimidation. The stay on discovery is hereby lifted, with sanctions against the school board for obstruction." She turned to Eloise. "Mrs. Vale, your campaign's involvement in editing evidence places you dangerously close to contempt charges. Consider this a warning. This court will not tolerate attempts to suppress truth through media manipulation." The judge issued her orders rapid fire. Full discovery to proceed immediately. All sealed NDAs to be opened. Forensic preservation of all related communications, and Naima's immediate reinstatement pending final resolution. "Furthermore," she added, "any retaliation against witnesses will result in severe consequences." "We're adjourned." The gallery erupted in whispers as people filed out. In the courthouse corridor, Naima found herself surrounded by a growing circle of quiet support. Students, parents, and teachers gathered around her. Not with loud cheers, but with subtle nods and gentle touches to her shoulders. Marisol's mother pressed a container of homemade empanadas into her hands. A freshman boy who'd been in her poetry club showed her his phone. A social media group called Stand with Ms. Carter had over 2,000 members. Coach Derry's wife squeezed her hand without words. Through the crowd, Naima caught glimpses of Eloise's face twisted with fury as she hustled Preston toward their waiting car. Mercer slipped out a side door, shoulders hunched. But, for once, their attempts to escape scrutiny only highlighted their isolation. Red positioned himself at Naima's shoulder, parade rest stance conveying silent protection. Dr. Hattie dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, while Janelle organized the next steps with brisk efficiency. The afternoon sun slanted through the courthouse's high windows, catching dust motes in golden beams. Naima stood in its warmth, surrounded by her community's quiet strength, feeling each small gesture of solidarity like a shield being forged link by link. A student's parent, a custodian at the school, approached with coffee for everyone. Another parent who worked as a court clerk offered to help organize the upcoming documents. A retired teacher promised to substitute for free if Naima needed recovery time. The messages were clear. You are not alone. We see the truth. We stand with you. Emergency lights blazed across Hawthorne Ridge High's facade as community members filed into the auditorium for the hastily called board session. Tech crews adjusted cameras for the live stream, while Janelle arranged her laptop and files at the podium. Naima sat in the front row between Red and Hattie, her spine straight, hands folded in her lap. The room hummed with tension as more people crowded in: students, parents, teachers, and local media. Behind her, Marisol and her classmates formed a protective cluster. Board members filed onto the stage, looking uncomfortable under the bright lights. Principal Mercer took his usual seat, though his face had gone waxy. When Eloise Vale entered with Preston, the crowd's murmur turned sharp. "This emergency session will come to order," the board chair announced, voice echoing through the speakers. "Attorney Brooks, you may proceed." Janelle stood, remote in hand. "Tonight we present evidence of systematic abuse of power and attempted cover-up." She clicked, and the wall-sized screen lit up with the unedited hallway footage. The audience watched in silence as Preston's assault played out in high definition, his hand gripping Naima's throat, her controlled response. The gathered students' gasps of shock. "Now," Janelle continued, "listen to what happened next." She played the SRO's body mic recording. Mercer's voice filled the room. "Those phones need to disappear. You understand me? Make this go away." Color drained from Mercer's face as his own words condemned him. Eloise's knuckles went white on her armrest. "But that's not all," Janelle said. The screen split into panels showing previous victims, faces blurred but voices clear, describing encounters with Preston. An athlete describing threats in the locker room. A student council member detailing vandalized campaign posters. A girl quietly explaining why she transferred schools. Each of these incidents was buried under NDAs, Janelle explained. Each time, money and influence protected the aggressor instead of the victims. She pulled up a new screen. Text messages from Preston's phone, obtained through subpoena. The words blazed above the crowd. "She needs to learn her place. Nobody tells me no in my school. Dad's lawyers will handle it like always." Preston slumped in his chair, the swagger finally deserting him as his own words exposed his character. "Ms. Carter," Janelle called, "would you demonstrate the defensive technique you used that day?" Naima rose smoothly and walked to the center aisle. "I'll show you exactly what Marine Corps defensive training looks like." Her voice carried clear and steady. "The goal is to end conflict with minimal force while protecting everyone involved." She invited a female board member to assist. "Please place your hand here," she guided. Then, with precise, controlled movements, she demonstrated the wrist peel maneuver that had broken Preston's grip. "Notice, no punches thrown, no excessive force, just careful discipline to create distance and prevent harm." The contrast with Preston's violent grab was stark. "Mr. Vale," Janelle called, "would you care to explain your actions that day?" Preston looked around wildly, finding no escape from the cameras and eyes fixed on him. His face crumpled. His voice cracked. "I never thought. Nothing ever happened before when I—" He looked down at his hands. "No one ever made me face what I did." "Because money and influence protected you," Janelle pressed. "Yes." The word seemed torn from him. "Mom and Dad always fixed it. I thought I could do whatever I wanted." Tears started rolling down his face. "I was wrong. I'm sorry." "I'm so sorry." The board chair cleared his throat. "We have before us several motions. First, Principal Mercer has submitted his resignation, effective immediately." Mercer stood stiffly and walked off stage without looking back. "Second, the Ethics Committee has found Mrs. Vale in violation of campaign finance laws for unlawful coordination in evidence tampering. She faces significant fines." Eloise's face was a mask of fury as she stood. "I withdraw from the mayoral race," she announced through clenched teeth, then stalked toward the exit. Finally, regarding Preston Vale, he has agreed to plead guilty to assault. The court's sentence includes mandatory counseling, supervised community service at the school's literacy program, and a public apology. Preston rose on shaking legs. The cameras zoomed in as he faced Naima. "Ms. Carter, I am deeply sorry for assaulting you. My behavior was inexcusable. I've never taken responsibility for my actions before, but I'm starting now. I will work every day to be worthy of this second chance." Applause thundered through the auditorium. Preston stood awkwardly in the spotlight, head bowed, his carefully constructed world of privilege finally cracked open. Naima remained seated, her face calm. Red squeezed her shoulder while Hattie wiped away tears. Around them, the community rose to their feet, their approval washing through the room in waves. On screens across town, viewers watched justice unfold in real time. The live feed captured every moment as the powerful finally faced consequences, and a teacher's dignity prevailed over violence and intimidation. The morning sun streamed through the school board meeting room's windows as Superintendent Howard Chen signed the final page of the new district policy. "The Carter Protocol is now official," he announced, passing copies to the gathered administrators and teachers. Naima sat between Janelle and Hattie, reviewing the document's key points. The protocol mandated immediate preservation of security footage, required documentation of all disciplinary incidents, and established clear chains of evidence custody. Most importantly, it banned private settlements and non-disclosure agreements in cases of student misconduct. "This ensures transparency," Janelle explained to the room. "No more buried incidents. No more paying for silence." Dr. Chen nodded. "We're also implementing trauma-informed training for all staff. Ms. Carter has agreed to help develop that curriculum." After the meeting, Naima walked the sunny hallway with Hattie, passing the spot where everything had started. Students waved and called out greetings, the awkward tension of recent weeks replaced by warm respect. "Did you see the Foundation's announcement?" Hattie asked, pulling up an email on her phone. Naima smiled. "About Marisol's scholarship? Not just restored, they doubled it. Full ride plus living expenses." Hattie beamed. The Morgan Foundation was furious when they learned about the Vail donors' threats. They're creating a whole new social justice scholarship program in Marisol's name. They reached the library, where Brooklyn and Tarek Jones were setting up a display about digital documentation and student rights. Both had received special commendations from the school board for their role in preserving evidence. "The exhibit looks great," Naima told them, examining the carefully arranged timeline of events. "We wanted to show how everyone's small actions added up," Brooke explained. "One video, one witness statement, one person speaking up. It all matters. Plus the technical stuff," Tariq added. "Proper timestamps, backup copies, verification methods. So next time, everyone knows how to protect the truth." Down the hall, they passed Coach Derry's office, where he was hanging his newly approved tenure certificate. The board had recognized his eventual courage in coming forward, extending his contract with additional protections for whistleblowers. "Officer Lentz got his commendation today, too," Coach mentioned as they passed. "The chief actually thanked him for following procedure instead of playing politics. Times really are changing." The local newspaper sat folded on his desk, showing Eloise Vail's terse withdrawal statement. She'd resigned from all community boards as well, and rumors suggested the family was house hunting in another state. The article also noted that former Principal Mercer was cooperating with state investigators looking into years of mishandled incidents. That afternoon, Naima prepared the gym for her first community self-defense clinic. She'd insisted it be free and open to everyone. Students, parents, faculty. The sign-up sheet had filled immediately. "Remember," she told the gathered participants, "this isn't about hurting others. It's about protecting yourself and de-escalating conflict. Dignity is strategy." Preston Vail stood quietly at the back, distributing water bottles as part of his community service. His designer clothes were replaced by simple gym wear, his former swagger nowhere in sight. When participants needed a partner, he stepped in without complaint, allowing himself to be used to demonstrate proper defensive stances. "Good," Naima said, as he helped a freshman practice a wrist release. "Now remember, control, not aggression. The goal is distance and safety." Preston nodded, his face serious as he played his role. During water breaks, he efficiently refilled coolers and cleaned up spills without being asked. The change in him was stark. Not broken, but humbled into something closer to wisdom. Parents watched from the bleachers as Naima led everyone through basic techniques. Marisol and her mother practiced side by side, their movements growing more confident. Tarek recorded segments for the school's safety website, while Brooke took notes for the student paper. "Let's finish with boundary setting," Naima announced. "Your voice is your first line of defense. Everyone strong and clear, say, "Stop!" The word echoed off the gym walls as dozens of voices joined together. Even Preston participated, his quiet "stop" carrying a weight of understanding it hadn't held before. As the session ended, participants gathered their things, chatting and practicing movements. Several thanked Naima, including a few who'd initially opposed her during the controversy. She noticed some of them exchange numbers, building new connections. "Same time next week?" people called out. Naima nodded, already seeing how these sessions could help heal the community's divisions. Preston finished his cleanup duties, pausing near the door. "Ms. Carter?" His voice was subdued but steady. "Thank you for teaching me what you could have done to me that day, but didn't." Naima met his eyes. "Remember that feeling when you're tempted to use force against others?" He nodded once and left, shoulders straight, but not proud. The gym slowly emptied as the sun began to set. Naima checked the equipment, straightened the mats, and finally moved toward the exit. She could hear kids jogging on the track outside, their sneakers thumping rhythmically on the asphalt. As she turned off the lights and locked the heavy gym doors, she felt the familiar cadence rising in her throat. Her soft voice carried just enough for her own ears. Left, right, left. The evening air held a new crispness, matching the freshly awakened spirit she felt in the town. Students called out goodbyes as they passed. A parent waved from their car. Officer Lentz nodded respectfully from his patrol vehicle. The changed atmosphere was subtle, but undeniable. Where silence had once protected the powerful, truth now moved freely through open doors and renewed connections. It wasn't perfect. Change never was. But it was awake, alive, and moving forward in steady rhythm. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.